Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Europe Fall Regional for Heroes of the Storm, live from Gamescom 2016. We've got a bit of a crowd in this morning. Can we hear you? There we go, there they are. Good stuff. They are all here to enjoy the $100,000 tournament that we have for Heroes of the Storm. It's been a fantastic 2016 for the game, and we are getting to the end of the season, the sharp end of the season, as we go to the road for BlizzCon. This is the 5th regional, the 2nd one in the fall, and it's probably the most important one. Yesterday, we had a fantastic day with Group A. The 2 teams that came through were the predicted teams, but today we'll move on to Group B and find out other 2 semi-finals. Who will they be? We'll find out over the next few hours as we head into 5 matches of Heroes of the Storm. And to bring you all of the action and update you as to where we are in the tournament, here's Kendrick and the guys at the desk.
All right, welcome Gamescom, and thank you, Red Eye, for that awesome introduction. And you are exactly right. Today we're going to find out who else is going to advance to the playoffs to get one step closer to that ticket to BlizzCon, of course. Once again, on the panel here, this is where we're going to take some time to analyze the games and talk to you through some strategy before and after the games. And of course, I couldn't do it all by myself. That's why I'm being joined by some fine gentlemen once more, Todd, Calder, and Jay. How's it going, everybody?
I'm doing great. I mean, yesterday's games were truly amazing. I think everything that we saw yesterday far exceeded our expectations, especially what we saw, the Medivh play and everything like that. Guys, I think we can expect a lot more. This group is a lot more questions than we had yesterday.
Absolutely. It seems like it was pretty straightforward yesterday, although we had a lot of 2-1 scores. You know, Fnatic scared, gave a few scares to a lot of people, but I feel like today it's a lot more open as to who might make it, in particular in 2nd place, I think, other than for Misfits being the big favorite.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, going into Group A, everybody thought, okay, we're going to see Dignitas and Fnatic advance. In the end, it was a lot closer than it was supposed to be. Chaos was the best word to actually to describe yesterday's games. Today, on the other hand, we have a lot of teams that could make it out of the group, so it's going to be a really interesting day.
Yeah, many considered Group A to be the death ball group, if you will, like a lot of stacked teams or well-known teams. However, Group B is still able to keep up, in my personal opinion, because we have teams like GIZ, we have teams like Misfits, formerly known as Mai and Sandy, and of course some lesser-known teams, but still very powerful ones at that, like, for example, the Jabronis or EE. So we can't wait to see who's going to come out on top here. But of course, there is much more than just this European regional at this going on right now. So basically we have a global stage, or a global circuit, if you will. So we're going to take a look at the fall to, excuse me, we're going to take a look at the road to fall, because we have a lot of different regions, not only in the Western Hemisphere, in Europe and NA, but of course also in Asia. There's currently the Korean Super League going on, the Chinese Gold League. You basically name it and we've got it for you. So if you're interested in some really good competitive Heroes of the Storm, there's no better time to be alive than right now, guys.
The amount of, I guess, the level of play on all the regions right now seems to be stepping up the more we get through the year. I mean, there's always going to be roster changes and stuff like that, but what we've seen out of the NA region just last weekend, or the weekend before, and then we have this. I mean, I get to be a part of all this, and as an analyst, I'm like, this is really great. As a fan, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I get to be here to watch all this, because it's actually really, really fun to watch from the lower end to the higher end.
And especially if you think back to the Summer Championship, guys, long gone are the times where it was Korea only. China has stepped their game up, so has Europe, and even NA as well. So there's basically like a global competition going on that is very enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, and also, you know, one of the things I talked about yesterday is that maybe the team that's been doing it well in the European scene, talking from a lot of pros, it sounded like it was Misfits, whereas, you know, the 2nd team that was doing the best, Fnatic, and then 3rd, Dignitas. That was kind of upset in a way, you know. Dignitas were able to do, I guess, better than Fnatic in beating them. So now today, do we really see Misfit deliver, or do they kind of like Fnatic struggle a little bit? Because I don't think they're just the favorite here to advance in 1st place of that Group B. I think they also are supposed to dominate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there was a lot of action going on yesterday. We've seen crazy team comps, especially from a team like 2Bs, for example. ADR, the crazy mastermind, made heroes like Medivh work, Butcher work. And I'm sure that you guys are very excited to see a highlight video, or basically a wrap-up of what happened yesterday, just in case you weren't able to watch. We got you covered.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Heroes of the Storm Europe Fall Regional. The one and only Team Dignitas. For the German teams, please welcome
win this first one.
Game number 2 in the Heroes of the Storm Championship. Please welcome Fnatic. A against the team. 2Bs decided.
Schwimpy gets blown up by a blizzard though, and that's a nice little bit of comeback. And after lots of posturing, Fnatic finally able to find the right fight to allow them to win the game.
Live from Cologne at Gamescom, 2 of the strongest European teams clashing.
If you've ever wanted to know what Bakery would do in his last few seconds on Earth, that's what it looks like. In the game, of course, in the game.
Well, usually he'd be saving someone if he could, but his team was already entirely dead, so he decided to rejoin them, be with them, and maybe save them in the afterlife. But Fnatic, a very, very strong win.
A wonderful game, GG, as Dignitas evens it up, and we get treated to a 3rd game between the 2.
Really good game. Always happy to see Stitches come out.
Teams 2Bs and E-Punks both want to make sure to finally establish themselves.
Already have Jaina with a follow-up with Blade, with the Butcher spread, is going for it. The Butcher wants fresh meat. Look at the damage output. It's a double kill.
Final best of 3 here for Group A.
That's another kill, and Fnatic have had it. The yells are coming in.
Holy moly, what a day 1 it has been. Fnatic at the brink of defeat, but then managing to turn around the series once more. 2Bs showing a strong performance, but in the end, it was not enough. And Dignitas, to the surprise of many, flawless as always, immaculate almost.
We're talking a lot about Dignitas and also, of course, about the Misfits. And Misfits, for the longest time, were like supposed to be the strongest team in Europe. But if you actually look at the track record, then Dignitas was able to win 3 out of 4 regional finals, which is just absolutely incredible. They came to the tournament with a huge loss series in scrims, and they're saying like, well, we don't know exactly how we're going to do here. And then they win the group absolutely effortlessly. So again, once more, they are the team to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they said, you know, they were not taking this tournament as seriously as they would have otherwise, like if they hadn't automatically qualified for BlizzCon already, but they still delivered and did not disappoint their fans, Jayhao.
I think that what we saw from Dignitas yesterday kind of said that, hey, no matter if we're playing at our best or we're just kind of coming in here, we're going to play and we're going to see what happens. They're that good. I mean, Mene, I can't speak highly enough about that guy. They've got like a full all-star squad. I think we look at everything, but Mene in particular, that guy can really carry a team, something that we don't see that often in the European region.
Must be French blood, Todd.
Yeah, it must be. The thing about Dignitas is that they notoriously, don't necessarily do that well in scrims, and then they go to the tournament and win it anyway. But that's what I was telling them when they were telling me that they had been having a really tough time here before this tournament. But they were telling me this time it was more extreme. We actually lost so much before coming here.
Right, and to give you guys a better overview of what happened yesterday exactly, so you get to see all the series, we're now going to prepare that Group A bracket for you. Team Dignitas, flawless performance, not dropping a single best of 3. Fnatic, on the other hand, they had a little bit of a more wonky road to pass here, but in the end, the result is what matters, and they are in the playoffs facing the first spot here of the upcoming Group B.
Well, I think whatever we see coming out of today, I mean, you look at the fact that no matter how you place, whether you come out first today or whether you get in the qualifier match, the decider match, you got to go up against Dignitas or Fnatic, 2 of the favorites to win the entire thing. Fnatic had a rough day. They talked about a few things they had troubles with yesterday, but I think the fact that they get a day off today and they get to regroup, they get to watch what's going on today, it's going to give them a chance to study, give them a chance to relax. So no matter who you go up against tomorrow, you just better be thinking, all right, well, let's just get as much as we can out of the way today.
I mean, we're talking about the reigning European champion Dignitas and second place Fnatic, after all.
One of the things that we have to also remember here is that there's two stories at this tournament. First of all, you want to win the regional, but also there's a spot for BlizzCon. And with Dignitas already being qualified for BlizzCon, we will probably see this match at some point between Fnatic and Misfits. This is at least what we expect if the favorites go through. There could be a few upsets. There are strong teams in Group E as well, but there's a good chance that actually Misfits make it out of the group first, and then we would have that semi-final tomorrow having a lot of importance, because if that actually happens, if the Misfits go up against Fnatic, then this match is going to decide who goes to BlizzCon.
Yeah, think about it, right? The first semi-finals will be Dignitas against whoever comes out in second place here from that Group B. If Dignitas wins that second semi-finals becomes the qualifying match for BlizzCon, so that would be very big. And I feel like it's a likely scenario here, unless we see some sort of upsets today, or maybe Dignitas somehow tomorrow loses their semi-final. I think this is what we're going to see here, and that makes things even more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we're always talking about this holy trinity in Europe, the three strong teams, namely Dignitas, Fnatic, and Misfits. And it's going to be really interesting to see what their current form and shape is going to be, especially the Misfits, of course, that are going to be playing here in Group B. They will actually be the first game that we're covering here as well for this second day of Gamescom. So Misfit against GIZ is actually going to be our very first best of three, followed by EE and the Jabronis. A match or a series that is still just equally exciting, because we don't really know too much out of these teams except for a few individual players.
Actually, with EE, we know quite a bit, because if you think about DreamHack Valencia, we had two teams that went there that thought, okay, we have actually a really good shot there. There was T89, the old Navi squad, and we also had the Crying Chickens. And after the tournament, basically, the best players of the two teams formed a new team. Especially T89 was a little bit frustrated with their performance at DreamHack Tours, at DreamHack Valencia, and they said, we need to change things up. So now we have a bit of an all-star team with the best players of those two, and they immediately qualified for the regional here without any problems whatsoever. And they are definitely one of the teams to watch out for when we're looking at Group E, because right now, they are hailed as the top 4 team in Europe.
Calder, would you go as far and say that EE is now consisting of the two best parts from each T89 and the Chickens?
I would definitely go so far, yes. I mean, we have the Jabronis as well, but we see a few players that have been playing on so many European teams already. Eternal was also part of T89. He's now with the Jabronis. Yeah. We know the least about that team. We know all the players, but as a unity, they are the team that we know the least about. So they could definitely cause a few upsets. They're also the team that's the toughest to study for when you are in that group, because there's very little data available. But when we're talking about EE, they are definitely incredibly strong, and they could very well cause an upset here.
Absolutely. And since it's going to be a little bit of a longer day of Heroes of the Storm, we definitely got you covered in terms of a schedule. So we're going to let you know exactly when to tune in. If you have a favorite team and you don't really care about anything else, then here is the graphics to look at. We're going to kick things off with Misfits, the German team here playing on local turf, if you will, very experienced, and of course, a very strong opponent to face for any team that's basically fighting it out in Group B. They're playing against GIZ, a very aggressive Eastern European team, followed by EE, the Spanish Armada, if you will, playing against the Jabronis, who is a little bit of an unknown factor, as Calder has pointed out, because we don't really know too many results. We haven't really seen them play in too many games. But, Jay, is there anything that you think we can expect from this second best of three that we're going to take care of today?
I don't even know if it's something that I expect from them so much as somebody more than the team. Yeah. Zelia.
Yes.
He was the new face that came in Valencia, and he made a huge splash on his tracer play and everything in particular that he brought. When it comes to those games, I want to see what he does his second time around. Now that he's got that first one under his belt, that guy has potential to be one of the best in Europe, and I want to see if he's able to deliver in regional number 2 here.
There's actually also something to say about Zelia. He was incredibly nervous in Valencia, and this is something that he has to work at. It might be a factor here as well. We have a much bigger crowd here. It's a bigger venue as well. But if he can actually get those nerves under control, that would be fantastic for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't get more excited to see what this second day of the second European Regional has in store for us. So without further ado, guys, let's channel the energy and get hyped up for the first best of three of the day between Misfits and GIZ.
Okay, time to introduce you to our first two teams of the day in Group B. The first team are a team you'll be very familiar with in terms of their faces, if not their name. They are with a brand new organisation, champions already at the regionals before, but still searching for a place at the global finals. Please welcome Misfits. Plenty of support for the local boy. Also, their team that they'll go up against in Group B for the first time here under the new name, of course, as well. They have some history, though, in this as qualifiers. They came through against Team Liquid. They'll be looking to carry on that kind of form against Misfits. Please welcome GIZ. And with that, we're all set up for our teams. We'll let them get settled down in their chairs and head into game number one very shortly. Let's go back to the desk, get their final thoughts.
All right, thank you very much, Red Eye. The teams look ready, and so do we. At least I hope so. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about Misfits, and I'm pretty sure that most Heroes of the Storm fans know their individual players. They've known about their former history as Mind Sandy and the successes they had. But let's focus a little bit more on GIZ. They are also not really unknown if you take a look at their roster. Players like BKB, Lunar, Kuni-chan. Everybody who's been following the competitive scene for a little while know who these guys are and what they're capable of.
And Stork as well. Like some of these guys used to play on Virtus Pro, which was one of the very good teams in Europe, but not quite at the very top. And you know, some of them have reformed a team together. And to be honest, these guys cannot be overlooked. They once upon a time were, you know, still I guess are really respected in the European scene, but maybe haven't had as impressive results as they would like to.
There's one name we didn't say: Spixie. That guy, the majority of his games played by far are in Greymane. He has one of the highest win percentages, if not the highest win percentage wins, wow, on Greymane in Europe. I'm learning a different language as we go through the day here.
Well, what's his win rate?
75% win rate on Greymane, and that's a substantial amount of games. And the fact that he has that high of a win percentage on Greymane versus the rest of Europe says a lot.
Right.
They actually drafted for that Greymane in his old team. He was actually part of the Crying Chickens, and in every single match that you saw, they jumped on that Greymane first, to an extent where a lot of other people said, like, well, his Greymane isn't all that good. And I'm just like, what? Wait a moment. Like, every single time they get the Greymane, they just body team. So yeah, he's incredibly strong.
The thing is, though, we've talked about this yesterday already. Greymane so far in this tournament at Gamescom Cologne hasn't really impressed too much. Do you think that can harm a team like GIZ who's focusing on that hero?
I don't really think that they're focusing on the hero too much. You have to look at it this way. GIZ changed 3 players after the DreamHack Valencia, and the players that came over were also like Fixie, for example. BKB joined the team as well. So it's a bit of a new dynamic. Teams that played against them also say that they're very difficult to predict in drafts, and that's mainly because they change drafters. They actually have with BKB and with Stork people that influence the draft quite a bit, and depending on who they face and what kind of type of play they want to do, they change their drafters, which makes it quite difficult to draft against them probably, or just to counterplay them.
Yesterday, there were some warriors that we haven't seen at all, like a Johanna, for example, like Sonya. Do you think now that new teams have entered the stage, we're going to switch things up a little bit?
This is actually a really good question, because I'm just going to throw a name in here that we haven't heard all tournament. They are going to, there's a very high chance that they're going to play Dehaka.
Nice. I mean, back in the days, BKB was a very well-known Dehaka player. He sort of was one of the innovators, if I'm...
He absolutely loves the hero. The most common Dehaka build is a build that he originally started, and he really likes to play that hero still. There is a chance he's going to play it here. They have other stuff on the other hand that they could bring as well. In this case now, we see on Crestolo just the typical ban. So you want to get rid of Falstad. He has that global mobility that is just so spectacular on the map, and I don't think anybody on the panel here is surprised that Tyrael was banned out too.
After what we've seen yesterday and what this man is capable of doing, Tyrael, that is, you don't want to deal with him.
I think the more surprising thing, and this is the European meta that's developed, is the high priority on Arthas. I mean, it's been such a drastic increase in Arthas picks at this high level in the draft. It almost baffles me in the sense that they want to get the off tank first, and then they're going to settle with whatever they get. And you look at a team like GIZ, they have BKB. They've got 2 Warrior players on their team. So it allows them to play into this new European meta, and it allows them to be very strong by doing that.
For a long time, actually, Arthas was one of those Warriors that wasn't really prioritized. He was kind of like, at the bottom of that chain, but nowadays really came back to popularity, and then we see the Muradin and Rhaegar pick up on Misfits. Very solid. Jaina actually getting banned here.
Yeah, doesn't really come as a surprise. She has a really high priority right now in Europe. We've seen that yesterday too, and even before coming into the tournament, we were talking about it. One of the things that we have to point out here is also the priority that we see on Zagara for the Misfits. She is rising in priority again, but for the Misfits, it was always a highly contested pick. They love to play her on Cursed Hollow in particular. So in this case, they were even afraid of it getting banned out, and they make sure that they get right at the start Zagara.
That is someone that we also haven't seen yesterday at all, Illidan. And I actually talked to a couple of the players and asked them, like, have we forgotten about Illidan? Do you actually think that he still has a place in the current meta? And they were like, yeah, it's just not as common anymore. He's more of a niche pick hero. We
talk about the front line and the double tank. If you're going up with an Illidan against, let's say, a Muradin and an Arthas, then, well, you are not going to do a thing in that match. You jump into the back line and you are dead a second later. In this case, though, they have Arthas already. Who else is a really great counter pick against Illidan? It's a Lili and it's a Sylvanas. Both of them picked away. And what have we seen from Misfits in the past against Illidan? Lili looking for adventure, exactly.
They already had a support, though. You think they would have still been very inclined to go for Lili anyway?
Oh yeah, definitely. You can play Lili with a bit more damage-oriented build. You can go into the Water Dragon. The double support is definitely a thing that you can pull out if Illidan is the main weapon of your opponent. So I really like that thought process on the side of GIZ a lot, if they really want to force the Illidan play.
The thing about Tychus's trait is that even though evasion comes up on Illidan, it still goes through that. So it can still do damage. And you want to talk about hard counters, or at least somewhat semi-hard counters. Sonya pairs up very well against somebody like Illidan. It's not exactly the easy 1v1. My question for GIZ is, the problem I have with Illidan is that Illidan he's not going to sit on a hero from 100 to 0 because they'll be able to turn on it. They'll be able to counter it.
Abathur here, or
it's possible. Sylvanas doesn't deal enough damage for him to follow up on. They're going to go the double support. They lack a lot of burst damage, a lot of potential damage. They're going all in on Illidan, and that always makes me fearful of all-in Illidan comms. Tassadar can keep them alive, but you've got to do it really, really well. And you're looking at Sonya and Tychus, that's tough.
I actually prefer the draft that the Misfits have here as well, but I still can see it working what GIZ is doing here. They're not randomly just throwing out heroes. They know the draft pattern of Misfits. You can see it with them picking up the Lili immediately to make sure that Misfits cannot directly counter them. So this is definitely a draft that they paired with. And their scrim partners always said that they're extremely strong. They might throw something a little bit unorthodox your way, and that makes them a real threat. So they have definitely a plan here. And they have great players on all of these heroes. So this can work out for them, even though the Misfits have, I would call it a more stable draft that they can bring into this first.
It feels like it's very hard to engage for GIZ at the tributes, because we were playing on Cursed Hollow, and for them to slow it down, they're actually going to have to hard engage. So I'm not sure what the plan is going to be here. Maybe kind of try and let the first few ones go by and then fight only when they really have to. But if they start on falling behind, I really feel like this composition that they went for is going to be really hard for them to make work.
Yeah. And by the way, now we see the Battleground order, of course. It is going to be a best of 3, so 3 maps are going to be played. First one is, as Todd said, Cursed Hollow, followed by Infernal Shrines, and last but not least, Battlefield of Eternity. A Battleground that we haven't seen too frequently yesterday. Something I also wanted to bring up, guys. Misfits, they are known to play well against Illidan. Think back of the first regionals when they played it against Dignitas, I think it was. They just crushed them. So do you think that GIZ is going to do a better job than previous teams against Misfits, or what do you think?
When I look at Lili as the support, and then you see Illidan diving in, and Arthas as your solo warrior, like, it almost seems like you can probably do some damage to Illidan, but you could almost just easily turn on Tychus the same, or excuse me, on Arthas the same way, because you have a Tychus and because you have a Sonya, and it just seems like it's going to be easy pickings, because I don't know if they're going to be able to do enough damage to be able to sustain. Sonya has good survivability. There's going to be plenty of heals coming out from Rhaegar. It almost seems like they're not going to have the proper damage.
Yeah, it feels like they would need basically a Dream Wailing arrow for Illidan to go in the backline and blow up Tychus instantly. But I mean, Splendor's on Rhaegar, and that guy, he's He's pretty good at keeping people alive on his team.
Right. But without further ado, guys, I'm pretty sure that the players are ready, that you, the viewers, are ready. So let's not keep our first casters waiting for this first best of three. Of course, it's going to be none other than Kalaris and Grubby.
Thank you very much, guys. As we're about to get into our first series of day number 2, it is the ex-MyInsanity roster, previous Europe champions, going up against GIZ here and looking to try and put them down. But what is interesting overall is that GIZ here, with this kind of lineup, has a lot of comfort. We have seen the Lili before in scrims with the Illidan as well. It is strong on their side.
Yeah, and it really looks like a prepared strategy. Bringing this in the first match of a tournament is so daring. Usually you'll see teams bringing a very comfortable, very standard and stable style just so they can get a feel for the opponent, kind of scope out how they're doing. Everyone has their nerves a little bit on the edge, so to bring something like this right away oozes of confidence.
And definitely. Seeing Stork playing this Lili in just a moment, I've seen him not only just run it with the Illidan to make sure you're denying Illidan's biggest count, or one of his biggest counters, but also they don't even need to run it with an Illidan or anything like that. I've seen them just run it normal with Water Dragon, with Jugs as well. So it's cool to see a team here really experimenting so much so with a hero like Lili.
All right, I'm restructuring what's normal in my head. Apparently Lili Water Dragon is normal these days in Europe.
Does well whenever you see it come out, as we're just waiting to get into this game. But looking at the lineups as a whole, Grubby here, who do you think has the advantage going from phase to phase of the game? Who do you think starts the early game with a bit more of a strength here in terms of laning, etc.?
Well, usually Illidan can really punish people out of position in the beginning. Everyone is very sharp. Everyone has had a good rest. It's the first game of the day. There's not been a lot of chaos yet where your nerves really get tested by everything that has gone well and gone wrong. People usually are very sharp for the first game, even if they're a bit nervous, so they play more careful. It's usually later on in the day that people start taking bigger risks because they're starting to lose concentration.
Right.
And so I think that GIZ with the Illidan comp, they're not going to be able to maybe really propel the early game, but level 10 really is where Illidan comps start to get much more scary. So I think Misfits, they've got a really solid handle on the early game with heroes like Zagara. And Sonya, excellent laners. I think GIZ is hoping to capitalize on the mid game.
And that can be difficult against a team like Misfits, of course, when they are so well versed. They had a bit of a rough previous tournament in Valencia compared to what we're used to when it comes to watching a team like Misfits, ex-MyInsanity, actually go into these tournaments. But I've been watching them in scrims. I've seen them gain more confidence since then. They look more focused since Valencia. And them going for something like a Zagara pick as first pick, for example, is something that has such comfort behind it because we see them use it so powerfully. And especially new Zagara, she's fantastic.
Yeah, if you haven't watched Heroes of the Storm in a month or two, you may be a little bit out of whack with the very top priority picks in Heroes of the Storm meta right now. We have had a shift away from the pure stun combinations like Murden, Kael'thas combinations, all the way into priority picks of Sylvanas, Zagara, 2 specialists. And we've entered the sort of specialist meta. And also Tyrael, of course. We see a lot of these picks. Occasionally, very high prioritization of banning something like Vikings. But now Zagara, she's so strong. She's a little bit more difficult to play than before. More dynamic, but she's got a lot of options.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, looking at these two teams stylistically, I would say that Misfits is the team that oftentimes we'll come to a tournament and have one particular pocket pick. When we saw them in Tour, it was Lunara that was able to dominate a lot of the competition. When we saw them in Valencia, it was Tracer that didn't quite have the same traction that they wanted from Tour. Coming into this one, I'm interested to see what it's going to be, if it's the continuation of that Tychus throughout the tournament, because he's pretty good. He does what he can, especially against Double Warrior in this current Europe meta. But then GIZ on the other side is a team that has some wacky picks. I've seen some other cool stuff in their scrims that maybe we'll see get bust out later on. We'll see.
Very excited for that.
Yeah.
Just referencing back to the previous time where MyInsanity, which is Misfits now, faced Illidan. Illidan has long been a very dominant pick who completely polarizes the draft for both sides.
Yes.
He's very powerful. If he's properly supported, at times he seemed uncounterable. But My Insanity, now Misfits, found a wonderful counter to it. There was a first pick Illidan in DreamHack Valencia in July, mid-July, and My Insanity immediately picked Lily and Arthas. It's so cool to see GIZ here start with Arthas, taking away one of the primary Illidan counters, and then combining Illidan with Lily. They really did their research. Let's see if it's going to be enough.
All right, let's get into game number 1 here. To the left-hand side, we will have Zagara being played by Nurok, Blumby on Muradin, Dartmok on Sonya, Hasuobs on Tychus, and Splendor playing Rehgar. They are Team Misfits.
And for Team GIZ, we've got Stalk on Lily, Kunichan on Sylvanas, BKB on Arthas, Svixi playing Illidan, and Lunarn on Tassadar.
Just to see how this is going to work out for them. As I said before, in scrims, GIZ with the Lily Illidan pickups as a duo have worked wonders for them because they know they're able to deny it. And even still, Stork has so much experience in professional level scrims on Lily, which is a really weird sentence to say in here for the Storm at the moment, but it's just true.
Lily needs practice.
Apparently.
Positioning, of course, is important. It's so Lily is this support, which is relatively easy to play.
It's one way to look at it.
To get started with, but her positioning can really be min-maxed.
Yes.
It's very tempting to walk forward, cast the Blinding Winds on the back line also, and on the front line. And because she's got fast feet, a trait that gives her bonus movement speed, it seems easy to get out of trouble with her. But of course, if she gets stunned, if she gets taken down, slowed, maybe trapped, she can fall pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there is the potential here that we do see Jug of 1,000 Cups because they only have it running it along with the Tassadar. Oftentimes when I've seen it in scrims, it's been partnered up with another full support, one would say, and thus you can actually enable Water Dragon to come along. But against this comp, you could get good use out of Water Dragon when it comes to going up against like a Sonya, etc. But Jugs here will give them a lot of strong sustain for especially towards that mid game when Illidan gains so much traction.
I'm really glad you bring up that juxtaposition between these two heroics because they're truly almost equal in value, and both really are possible for the composition here. Do you support Illidan or do you slow Sonya? Sonya is and has been one of the primary Illidan counters, and she's very mobility dependent. If she can't stick to someone with her bonus movement speed due to getting slowed, she's almost useless.
All right, so let's get into this game number 1 as we see GIZ looking to position themselves. Darmok already very quickly scouted out, but Kunichan was rotating around to try and get a little bit of damage on towards towers and was quickly thwarted.
There's always this chance to get a little bit of tower damage with Sylvanas, but indeed there was enough defense. And I liked how Misfits did it. They went for a 2-1-2 position in the lanes, which means that they always have at least 2 to defend against 3 to 4 people, which is much better than gambling, saying, let's send 4 to the top, because maybe that's the one they're attacking. And then if you're wrong, you can't afford it.
Yeah, it does hurt a little bit if that's to be the case. Starmox can try and clean that up with Splendor. Not easy for them to get out there, though. Howling Blast from BKB could easily lock someone down, and they could try and deal with that. But at the same time, a good little rotation out of Blumby, going for a kill already on towards Stork, and will be able to get away. Names will lock, sorry.
Those fast little feet, Stork getting away on Lily. Looks like might have fallen, but managed to get away. Interesting talent choice for Nurok here, going for the volatile acid that allows Banelings to travel for 50% further.
Yeah. And that will
securing the kill there, Blumby with the Dwarf Toss.
First blood going over towards Misfits, not too bad here. Blumby a great, in Muradin, a great rotator just to maybe get themselves a kill or 2. But you're right, the volatile acid coming in, a bit more common in North America actually, and our North American representatives on the desk touting it quite heavily. And it's not only the range, it's extra damage that comes in when you're actually sieging up and, you know, be able to push down the minions and buildings as well. So it is quite powerful. The way up against Infest is debatable.
The cool thing is that there are 3 valid choices for Zagara, where before only ever Reconstitution was taken before the rework. Volatile Acid, better siege damage. You can go for Infest as well to achieve the same goal, but you don't get the long distance cancellation on the acquisition of the tributes. And then you also see a lot of Baneling drop talents, and we don't see that one now.
And of course, you can predict as well who you think will win this series at the moment. Misfits quite high up in that regard. As Blumpy once again is looking to push on against the close location. HotS should be fine against this, trying to counter on towards Zarmog. Very close to death. Will not die off though. Illidan meanwhile down to spot. Kunicak goes in with his haunting wave. Is he going to get away? He dodges the storm ball. Blumpy will jump out. So fights everywhere, but I think Zagara and Tychus did get Illidan to the bottom.
And this is the 4th of July, because there's fireworks already between these two teams. 3 takedowns in 3 minutes.
All right, Mass Vortex been picked up by Stork as well at level 4 on the Lili. We'll keep track of his talent build quite closely, considering we don't get to see too much Lili. But I think if we see GIZ during the day, we'll see a bit of her. Trust me on that one. So able to blind 4 targets instead of 2. But the question is once again what you brought up. It's positioning. If you're not in a close proximity to 4 people, you're not getting the value out of that talent.
Exactly.
As the timeless creature.
Sometimes you don't take Mass Vortex just because you'll be tempted to try and hit it on all 4 enemies, which means you'll be in the midst of 4 enemies, which is really risky. For example, like this. Thank you for the illustration.
Yeah, unfortunately, the little panda does die off while they were trying to rotate on around. And Misfits claimed that the tribute super easily there. So a little bit of momentum for them at the moment.
Yeah, they also get a little bit of a level lead. We've got the Bruiser camp here taken by GIZ at a suboptimal time, because it will be semi-cleared before the next tribute will spawn. Splendor will try to do that.
Using Oracle, seeing what's going on, making sure there's no rotations against him. And as such, I mean, he used the Oracle at the same time he saw the easy camp being taken to the top. So he knew where they were just as it had been popped anyway. So he was safe. He was safe.
Kalaris, I'm super surprised here by the Zagara talent pick. Nurok choosing to go at the 7th talent for the additional Baneling charges, omitting something like Baneling Slow, which can help to peel people away from yourself. He wants 6 Banelings at range, which basically means if they aren't blocked, infinite cancellations on the opponent's tribute.
Yes, it goes on for a long time, and it also does a lot of damage if you're just sieging up a location as well. Now, interesting enough, it's Illidan's level 7. No, it's not a misclick. Sphinxy actually does take Hunter's Onslaught quite a lot of the time, and but regardless, it didn't keep him alive there, so it doesn't really matter too much. But basically what that does is it heals for 25% of damage that basic abilities deal, and it is doubled versus heroes. So an extra little bit of sustain here for Illidan.
So I think he will get the Q talent at level 16, which means you do a bonus burst damage every time you do a second dive on an opponent hero. This gives you about 500 critical damage, which will then also heal you for 50% of it. So 250 healing every 4 seconds, basically. Really strong.
Yeah, it's really good, especially when you've got Tassadar shields to think about, leeching plasma on top of that, and also Lili to help out just a little bit in regards to... This is a very, very safe Illidan when it comes to the team fights, unless things go catastrophically wrong and it gets completely locked down.
Yeah, exactly. And Tychus is playing safe as well, being played here by Hasselhoff. He's gone for Relentless instead of the range on Grenade, because Kalaris, why would you need range on Grenade when the opponent is at your doorstep? Illidan never really tries to do the poke style, because guess what? He doesn't have any poke style.
That's true, yeah. You don't really need it too much at all, although we have the heroics coming in. Nidus Network has been taken. This is very important. Lunar goes down in the mid lane, but Nidus Network being taken means that they're going to be focusing so much more on just lane control fully, trying to split push wherever they can, and they know they can get away with it for quite a while at the moment because they're 2 tributes up on their opponents.
And now they're level 10 first, tribute is spawning, it almost looks like it'll be a hat trick for sure. Of course, GIZ will reach level 10 themselves, but they're gonna have to buy a bit of time. Tassadar just revived, everyone is closing in, we see Arthas moving in as well. Can they take this tribute? It's very important for GIZ, not so much for Misfits.
That was the best deny of a tribute of all time. Illidan walks up to you, taps you with his little Warglaive, and just walks away. I liked it.
It's easier now with the Cloud Serpent.
Yeah, that's true. And whoa, Lunan taking quite a bit of damage there. Has to be careful. Water Dragon comes in, actually, on towards Dartmok, blocks him down for a little bit. Sphinx is in the middle of all of this. Metamorphosis against 3 of them, and actually gets out.
The silence!
Wailing Arrow on towards 2. That will confirm the kill onto Rehgar. There's no more sustain here for Misfits. They've got to get out.
Rhaegar was in super deep there, got silenced, he was out of position already, made it completely impossible to save himself, and that's a very important tribute here for GIZ Kalaris.
Yes, it is, and also a very important boss. When you're going up against a Zagara with Nidus Network, you can't let things snowball out of control. Taking your own boss and making sure you've secured that, maybe even... Nah, I don't think they can get down here in time.
I think that GIZ should leave a single person there. I think they should have left Illidan once they got the boss to 30%, 50%, just like we saw yesterday from Team Dignitas against Fnatic. They know that if they give away the boss, the next tribute is 50-50. Yep. But if they were able to stop this boss, it pretty much secures GIZ the next tribute. And I feel like they, maybe they could have gotten more value out of it. On the other hand, Tribute is in a good position for GIZ, and they've got Sylvanas, which means the boss has 100% life. Yeah. It forces Misfits to respond, and it gives GIZ position to take the Tribute first.
Definitely. This is a great little spot for them, especially since they're looking to push on with this boss quite aggressively. The fact that they do have that Sylvanas still in tow, and there's not been much poke damage done here from Misfits on towards the boss. It's still very healthy here. They could potentially get a keep.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a late rotation from Zagara back to Hearthstone. She stayed at the bottom lane to support the boss, but she is the best poker. This is going to be a keep at 8 minutes and 30. Or can Misfits turn this around?
And meanwhile, the other boss isn't really doing much at all. It's got probably a wall, no doubt, nowhere near a keep. Sphinxy going in against Blumby, quite low. Metamorphosis, actually not really able to clip, just too many on that edge there. As Hasselhoffs will try and push them away on the left-hand side. That drill actually got quite a lot of value for pushing them away, but they got to keep, they got what they wanted to achieve, back out and do very, very well here.
Yeah, what an incredible start here for GIZ. The boss of Misfits is still pushing in, but it's at 10% life. And now it's the fight for the tribute. We've got level 13 for Misfits. Can they get the cancellation?
No! Forwards. GIZ will lose Lili very, very quickly there. They still want to disengage. They don't have as much sustain, anywhere near as much sustain as they would like. And Sylvanas will end up falling as well.
Double kill. It seems pretty okay for Misfits. They gave away the tribute, but it's two for... they got 2 kills. They're going to get Illidan as well, I think.
Yup. Bye-bye.
Nicely done by Misfits. 3 takedowns for the price of a tribute. The next one is still up for grabs. And the bottom keep, as small as the boss was, it was supported by a double minion wave, so it took a lot of damage.
All right, so it looks like Misfits here just wanting to make sure they can get themselves a few more structures. Of course, them equalizing out as much as possible in that top lane is quite important for Misfits, despite them being a level ahead, because they've lost their keep up there. Now when you lose keeps, the minions are doing a lot of damage, and they will push on and can become winions, in inverted commas, and then start doing a lot of damage to your core if you're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool Tychus pick here by Hasselhoffs. He's gone for That's the Stuff. Bonus healing against enemy heroes. Note that although Illidan has evasion and he cannot take any damage from auto attacks during evasion for 2.5 seconds, minigun goes through that. Yep. It's considered as magic damage.
The wall starts things off towards the bottom. Really doesn't do too much at the moment here. Just fighting against this. It's 2 tributes versus 2 tributes. This is very important, and both teams are going to play this slow. BKB walks in and, well, we all know how aggressive BKB can be from his team Liquid.
Nuruk is not in position to cancel the tribute.
Water Dragon comes down as well on towards Sonny here. They're trying to go in very, very deep against him. 3-man silence. Sphinxy here going ham to the bottom here, trying to put some pressure on towards Dartmok. Likewise, BKB slowing some of his attacks here with the Bridge of Winds, but it's not going to be enough as Arthur ends up falling. The drill is able to kill off Lili, and GIZ is in full retreat here, Grubby.
Yeah, Lunard had no mana. He had no position. He was somehow in that cubby hole above there. Very good position here for Misfits. They used it perfectly. This tribute was important, but it was in a good location for Misfits, and they managed to take them down. 3 people. The keep will surely follow. Kalaris, this could be game.
It could be. They're going to take themselves the keep at least, which is absolutely perfect for them. I think with the respawn timers coming up here, they're a little bit apprehensive about pushing on any further forwards. But now, Blumby, with level 16, has heavy impact. This means that he almost guarantees himself the land on his Stormball afterwards when he jumps in onto someone, because they're stood still for 0.75 seconds. It's quite nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very easy to hit stun, a little bit easier than Stormbolt. And we really saw a shift towards it, away from the auto attack style burden or the full self-sustain. now getting a lot more stuns with that heavy impact.
Yeah, it's like 50-50. Sometimes, like yesterday, for example, we saw a lot of give him the axe, and it's like quite strong as well because they're so much slower because Jaina got through all the time. But that's going to be a fight. And once again, Warp Dragon actually hit 2 or 3 there, and so slowing them down quite heavily at the front. I don't think Misfits wants to continue taking that fight, especially since the Keep has almost full ammunition.
That was a very scary fight there for a moment as they were getting triple man silenced. They were going for BKB, but he used Icebound Fortitude, the level 7 talent, to not get stunned for that long by the Dwarf Toss and the follow-up Stormball. And as the dust clears, 2-level lead. We've got 1 keep down. And way more forts still for Misfits. They're in solid control of the game. And what's important to note as well is that Zagara was able to spread her creep over 3 different lanes. You can put a Nidus Worm in a Nidus network in any position where there is already creep. So if you need it on the other side of the map, but you don't have creep there yet, you're going to be out of luck.
And to give you an idea of how much work that's done so far, Zagara has 101,000 siege damage. So she's been able to, you know, quite quietly actually just be in lanes, doing big damage and just pushing things along. Even if it's just killing off waves, not getting structural damage, it still causes a lot of problems for GIZ.
GIZ, they're not at level 16 yet. They've got a boss and they're moving in. This is like a commitment.
Yeah, this looks like they're just going for game.
Yeah.
Because there's a boss pushing against them. If they don't do big damage here, they're just going to let that boss go on to call.
Oh, this is it. This is totally it. It ends either way. GIZ is going for broke.
Yeah, and they blast on towards Neuro there for a moment. Darkmark gets Ancestral healed as well. While Sphinxy is well on top of him. There goes the stun. It zones him out for a little bit. Metamorphosis only hits 1 person as Blumpy tries to reposition himself.
Oh, Rhaegar Splendor! Splendor gets silenced and rooted.
That's a lot of damage going on towards him. Without Rhaegar, this could be game because they don't have enough sustain out of the backside. Sphinxy here is still keeping himself alive. Goes straight onto Core. That's an ambitious move. Blumpy is trying to keep him locked down. They've lost Sylvanas on the back of the Scrubby.
Core is starting to take damage for both sides. It's a trade in true EU fashion. They take down Illidan, the most important damage dealer, and Misfits have done it.
Oh my god, able to just go up against that and losing Rhaegar in that position. You'd think they were able to win out that fight, but no! The boss with catapults takes the game for Misfits. But whoa, 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 did GIZ bring on a fight in game number 1?
GIZ knew that they had to do it with the boss moving on their core, being firmly out map controlled by Zagara and being out leveled. They wanted to risk it all, and it was a fair attempt. They got Splendor, they got Rhaegar. Illidan can almost prevent all damage being taken on the core.
It felt like if Illidan hadn't gone so far forwards and they'd just kind of been slightly slower with the movement forward, maybe they could have got a better engagement. And
but Zagara was doing a lot of damage on the boss. 6 Baneling charges, bonus damage.
It's interesting to watch that kind of situation play out because it all happens so fast. You see so many split-second decisions being made in a very, very small window that anything could happen there. Like you see Rhaegar die, but then they still continue to take the 4-on-5 with the boss still pushing and them having to avoid the slams, etc.
Yeah, they've got to.
They win it out.
What do you think about BKB walking away at the end with his core at 20% against the boss and 3 catapults? Like first Arthur's Burgess Stratholm, and then he walks away from like, just go, man. Just do final 1%, protecting his KDA.
Gotta do what you gotta do. It's important, those stats, man. Those stats. All right, well, thank you very much, guys. We're gonna head over to the analysis desk to see what they think about game number 1 between Misfits and GIZ.
All right, thank you very much, boys. And we couldn't have a game cast by Kalaris if there wasn't at least some core action involved. Now, that was the first game of the best of 3 between Misfits and, of course, GIZ. And guys, what do we make of this first impression that GIZ left on us? It was a very close game after all.
I mean, it seemed like they had the tools to make it work. It's just they got a little bit overcommitted, and then things started to fall apart. You know, they got the keep, and then it was basically the return damage from Misfits that was the turning point in this entire game.
Yeah, Illidan was once feared a lot. Nowadays we don't see him as much, but he's still a very strong hero to go for a composition like this, and they almost made it work to some extent here. They had some good moments, so Definitely showing some good promise here, I think, especially since they go up against the big favorite in Misfits.
They could have definitely won the game. In the end, when we saw the push happening, Rhaegar falls, they get level 16 at the same time, so they all of a sudden are on same talents.
Right.
They can make that work. With an Illidan in particular, if they can keep the heroes and especially the damage dealers alive a bit more longer, they will be able to end with a boss. So that was a very close call at the end here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that J-How chose one highlight in particular, so without further ado, let's actually get to it.
I mean, this is the part where we saw a little bit of a change of pace. I mean, they went in. This was the commitment with the boss early on. They got the keep, and this is when it seemed like GIZ started to have the map in their control. You talk about a moment like this in the game where you get the first keep down. It's 8 minutes in, and it goes on a little bit longer here. You know, this is one of the moments to where you can generally take this and be able to put map pressure on for the rest of the game. And the commitment here to go in, and they got it. And then it was just whatever Misfits wanted to do, they realized, hey, we have to make something happen. We can't just stay back. They're almost 13, but you see Darkmok in the back completely wreaking havoc. And then, of course, the Wailing Arrow comes in return. The entire time, they're trying to just ward them off. Misfits drug this out as long as they could. They defended. That could have been a potential in there, but that was towards the end of the game when they felt good. But that was the moment where we saw the commitment early on in the game, and I think that was really good by GIZ. What happened right after that was the fact that they were able to get the kills onto GIZ, did Misfits when they got the chase, and then from then on, it just seemed like Misfits took control.
Yeah, however, the cards are going to be shuffled anew on this second battleground, which is going to be Infernal Shrines. Other heroes might actually be prioritized a little bit, like Kerrigan, for example. Would an early ban potentially on that hero surprise you guys?
Not necessarily. I mean, Kerrigan is fantastic on the map, so if they feel this is going to be a threat, they will ban her out. Again, we could see that Sylvanas, it's a hero that just has that constant pressure against you. If you lose an objective, your opponent will be able to get damage. And this is one of the main reasons why we saw that keep fall in the first place. Yeah. So on a map like Infernal Shrine, Sylvanas also adds a lot of value to the setup, and I believe we are going to see her either banned or taken here.
Yeah, what do you make of the Tychus, by the way, in the last game? Tychus actually starting to convince me more and more the more frequently I see him.
He's actually played quite a bit, and he was also played in Valencia. The teams have been practicing with him for a long time. It really works against this double warrior meta that is right now just the norm in Europe. And especially if you have a big front line, like let's say Arthur's Muradin, he's absolutely fantastic with the damage output as long as he can keep him safe.
Yeah, and it was Hazuov's playing him, obviously. That helped, I'm sure.
Pretty good player. Can't say more than that. Let's see. Turiel banned again, and we mentioned Kerrigan. We're not going to have her in the game because, as Calder pointed out, she's ever so powerful on Infernal Shrines.
You have so many choke points on this map. It's also one of the reasons why Turiel, I mean, there's several reasons why Turiel is being banned out, but he gains extra value with the control that you want to have over the shrines. Kerrigan is in a very similar spot where your opponent has at some point to funnel through that choke point, and if Kerrigan gets a good combo off right now, then of course you get so much value. That's why both of them are being banned out here. It allows Falstad into the draft with the global presence is always a huge factor to consider here. And Misfits, they counter with that Sylvanas that we talked about, and even a super early pick on Tychus.
It seems like they took Sylvanas away from GIZ. I kind of like the early pickup here. We obviously know that Sylvanas does so well on this map when she's pushing with the Punishers. And then it's up to GIZ. Muradin, of course, is going to be a very safe pick, fits right into their hero pool and what they do. I just wonder with the an interesting Brightwing pickup. That's double global right there. I almost wonder if they're going to be looking at something like the Greymane that we talked about earlier, or whether Spixie's going to be on that Falstad. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to manage their heroes, and especially with Sylvanas already being taken off the board.
Well, whatever happened to Zul? We don't see him come out too much anymore.
It's Europe.
And
apparently they forgot about it. They don't like him, and I don't understand it.
I was speaking with Juve earlier, which we see on screen right now. He's the coach. He used to be a very competitive player, and I think it's helping them a lot to have an extra pair of eyes, to pay attention in the game to some things that they might not notice, helping with the draft here. Generally speaking, in Misfits, it's Splendor that's going to be leading the draft, and having those last calls, but Tassadar actually get bans here.
I actually like the ban quite a bit. If you play Brightwing, then you kind of lean towards having a second support as well. A lot of teams will pair Brightwing with a Tassadar, and they are already looking at this and they're saying, okay, whatever they're trying to put in as the last pick could be a melee assassin, it could be a warrior that fills that role too. If they have a double support, that might become a problem for us, so let's just take Tassadar away for now. Everything else we can deal with. He also offers the Force Wall, which in the choke points is again fantastic. So this is a really good utility ban.
So guys, we've got two key requirements basically for Diablo. Infernal Shrines, double tank meta. Where is Diablo, though? Because he used to be seen a lot more frequently a couple of weeks and months ago.
If you play Diablo, you want to always try and pair him with someone who has the additional disable, or you want to blow a target away. He's an isolation hero. You try and punish your opponent for being out of position. Right now, it's a little bit difficult with the double tank meta as well. There's more pressure on him, and you can also like follow the target that gets pushed in immediately if you have a gap closer. So in this case, I don't really think it fits necessarily into that comp, especially since Misfits, for example, don't really have a lockdown just yet. For them, they still need their front line. And GIZ, they banned out in Illidan. I'm not quite sure if I actually agree with that ban, considering what they're running here.
There's our Diablo.
I would have banned out another tank, to be honest with you, or like grabbed another one instead of the early Brightwing and tried to really dominate the shrine position. Because the problem that GIZ has, once Misfits wins the Punisher, they are in trouble.
The thing about Diablo is he gains so much value after level 4. Just the simple fact that he runs the fire aura that he gets after his wave goes out, and it gives so much value to help clear a lot of that. I think that's why we see a lot of Diablo on Infernal Shrines in particular. He does need the isolation, and this is a first for me. In a large event, that's going to be Dehaka.
And that's now their third global. I mean, Dehaka, we talked about it a bit earlier as a hero that they really like, but that's their third global that they all of a sudden have. And it's also like a lot of AoE overall that they have in their setup right now. For wave clear that they can use to put the additional pressure on. They're very mobile on the map.
It's a very sneaky global too. Like literally you come out of a bush, you know, maybe straight into one of the shrines. People don't really expect it. You could start having a bad night. That Greymane finally here coming into play. That 75% win rate's gonna be put to the test here.
I really want to see what Misfits
think for the last game, I think, on the Illidan last game.
Like the last pick here is really interesting to me because Diablo will need some kind of assistance. And I guess there's still a couple of like tanks around that you could actually take. I mean, ETC, for example, was completely disregarded. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Arthas, Johanna. We don't see Johanna much anymore either.
The thing is,
sorry, go ahead.
No worries. You definitely want to have something to keep Greymane in check as well. So crowd control might actually be something they want to consider. Even something like an Anubarak is still something that we might actually expect, although he falls rather quickly to something like a Greymane because he's more like an anti-magic tank these days.
And
so,
Sonya actually comes up.
I mean, Sonya was like one of the most contested heroes on Infernal Shrines in particular because she has the presence on the shrine itself. She gains great value there. She is a hero that can easily clear the shrines by herself. This is still a pretty, I mean, it's a bit of a more squishy setup than the huge hit point heavy double front that we oftentimes see, but it also has a lot of potential. With that damage output that you have on the two backliners and also then Sonya at the front, with Diablo able to just like punish any kind of target that is out of position, you have a lot of aggression there. The problem for them is really only going to be if they are not able to win any of these punishers and start falling behind.
It's a very interesting dynamic where they went for a lot of global here, the GIZ, but if they try to delay their arrival to the shrine, and then there is a head start for Misfits, and then they do end up getting those punishers, they have Sylvanas on their team, so they're gonna have to be very careful to get there on time and to fight enough that they make sure they don't let those punishers get away.
Despite the fact that they have 3 globals, like I've been talking about Dehaka for a while. He goes in, he does decent area AoE damage. You know, especially he gets good wave clear if he specs into it at level 1. It doesn't necessarily work on the shrines. But if he can go in there and get some damage in and get a little bit of control, and then you've got Brightwing who's going to be there, Falstad who allows a bit of damage to come in. I almost feel like the shrine phase isn't a complete loss. I almost feel like it's a little bit more even. Obviously, on the side of Misfits, it seems a little bit better, Kaldor.
You can play. It depends a bit on how they're going to play it, because you can really just play around the opponent with that setup if you really want to. And that is something that is going to be very risky against the Sylvanas, but you can try and pull that off. And let's keep in mind that they're also in a position where with Dehaka changed and now able to take a whole wave down, all of a sudden they can just rotate. Let's say, for example, that shrine spawns in the middle, right? They rotate heroes to the top and to the bottom that have globals. They push these waves in and then go into the middle. All of a sudden, Misfits is looking at it as saying like, hey, if we fight here for a long time, we're going to lose structures on both lanes. We can't really afford to do that. We already lost experience because the opponents stayed on their lanes longer since they could make the rotations happen. And that's going to be key for GIZ now. They need very good rotations and very good decision making and also shot calling. If they have the coordination, they can definitely throw a curveball, and that could be the downfall of the Misfits here.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see what these two teams have in store for us on that second battleground, which is going to be Infernal Shrines. So I summon our casters, Grubby and Kalaris, once more.
we're getting into game number 2 here. As to the left-hand side, once again, it will be Team Misfits, with Tychus being played by Nurok. Blumby is on Diablo, Dartmark on Sonya, Hasuobs on Sylvanas, and Splendor is on the Rhaegar.
And for Team GIZ, we've got the front line being manned by Stalk on Murden, BKB on Dahaka, the damage dealers, Kunichan on Falstad, Sphyxie on Greymane, and finally the support, Lunarn on Brightwing.
Always exciting to see BKB rocking that Dahaka, something that is, you know, he really enjoys. So he's well versed with the hero. Let's see how he's going to play it. But again, so much global. On a map like this, Grubby, how does the global interact? Is this give them a slight advantage moving on later into the stages of the game? What do you think?
The way I see it, Mother Nature, evolution, wastes nothing. If you have a global, you're giving up something. In this particular case, it's going to be the movement speed when you're not using your global. Falstad is at 120%, Dahaka and Brightwing at 100%. So while they have more mobility in the lanes, from lane to lane, they're a little bit slower to rotate together, and that may be a little bit crucial. I'm not sure how much global you need on this map. Is 3 too much?
Right. Maybe. It's certainly a lot, much more than we usually see. Normally when we see this kind of global potential, it's against something like a Vikings or something like an Abathur. Even just Falstad alone is good against an Abathur, but you know, we've even seen Dahaka used in those kinds of situations before. But for now, at least Dahaka has himself quite a bit of wave clear, let's be honest with, especially with that level 1 talent, as Dark Swarm gains 100% bonus damage to those minions.
Did you see that? The Tychus started the overkill on Dahaka right as he burrowed away. His overkill minigun then followed Dahaka, so you can know exactly where he goes. If Dahaka, for instance, burrowed to the left side of the map, the overkill minigun would have pointed at him. So it's a way to divine his location. Pretty cool trick there.
Yeah, I like that. That's very cool. The Darmok here, whoa, taking a lot of damage. Got to be careful. Likewise, so is Diablo. He will go down as Blumby falls as first blood.
Now that was a 5-man grouping at 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Right.
And they used their globals for that. So they get a kill, but they will lose XP.
I wonder if they're looking to seize the early game advantage by just committing to the globals.
But you don't, though. Like, they got the kill, but they lost 4 minions in the bottom wave, pushed against the towers.
Well, that's the issue. Maybe, like, do they think that if they're able to get these kills early on, they compensate for the fact that they're going to miss it and then gain a little bit more, or what?
It's about equal. Like, you see that the XP is ahead for GIZ, but it's only because of the speed with which they cleared the waves.
Right.
4 minions, about equal to the XP you get from a hero. So it's more of a, we can, so let's do it, because killing enemy heroes is fun.
I like that.
But yeah, I like it too. Should be more of that.
Yeah, let's just kill everyone. It's great. Yeah. All right, well, let's see how they're going to compete against this Shrine. Diablo, as they said on the panel, has a lot of value here on the Shrines. And GIZ, though, has established themselves good position towards the middle. Likewise, Kunichan's come in. You can see even Dahaka towards the bottom, still soaking. So at the moment, this is a 4v5.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of these situations. This is kind of the strategy, the playstyle for GIZ here. Dahaka suddenly shows up. What is he going to do? Oh, Blumby on Diablo goes down again. No souls enough yet to resuscitate himself.
They're all very low, though, and Misfits is still very healthy, so they're going to turn this around. 2 go down already. Darmok in hot pursuit here of Kunichan doesn't quite have enough fury there to get the slams on and kill him, but that is that. 2 for 1, and even though GIZ had good position around the middle of the Shrine, the poke from Misfits was so good that they were able to gain themselves a minion lead anyway.
Yeah.
GIZ was in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And then GIZ, the way their globals works out, they'd like to delay the Shrine skeleton thing all the time to get bonus XP, but if Misfits just clear super fast, there's not really a case where you can do that, which is why like the 3 globals don't do as much.
Did you watch Blumby's positioning then? He was just corralling them away from the Arcane Punisher here to guarantee themselves that fort, and that is a brilliant pickup because normally first Punishers don't really get that much.
No, they get about 1.5 towers, 2 towers, maybe the gate as well, something like that. That's a Sylvanas fort, Galaris.
Right.
Due to the Black Arrow trade, the fort not helping to defend it, and also a very smart flank there by Sonya, played by Darkmok, just jumping in right next to the Immortal.
And for level 4, Dahaka has gone One Who Collects, which increases his essence collection from minions by 50%. BKB interchanges this a bit. Sometimes he goes for heroes, the one that increases essence from heroes. Sometimes he goes for minions, so maybe he's anticipating just having to you know, get the clearance and work on it from there. I mean, does it? I wonder if it, I don't think it triggers from skeletons.
No, it does not. It does not trigger from skeletons.
No.
Those are classified as monsters, which will be included in umbrella explanations such as non-heroes.
Yeah.
What you gain from non-heroes, what you deal against non-heroes.
All right, so once again, just a few free towers here. Those minions should finish that off. So Misfits have gained themselves quite good control. And with this hard camp being taken, if the shrine now pops up towards the bottom next, then it could be a bit sticky here for GIZ.
Yeah, I believe it's a 50-50 where it's going to end up next. It cannot double in the same location, but beyond that, it's anybody's guess. They haven't captured it yet. Sonya's still waiting there. Darkmok delaying the cap of that camp. Bloomby, by the way, has gone for Devil's Due. The 60 souls, well, coming back to life. So he hasn't gone for the regeneration or the block, instead choosing to come back many times. So going to try and make use of that trait.
It's funny, even the anticipation of the situations for the shrine, where Dahaka is still set up to the top anyway, can just burrow down to the bottom if he wants to. Just anticipating where it's going to pop up. And it's sort of towards the top, so this hard camp doesn't get full expense covered as what I would like to do.
Yeah, the only thing it really gives you at this point is while the opponent is clearing it, it allows you to choose your position, how to approach the opponent, but that Fallen Shaman doesn't really do that much.
Not too much at all, and he will be cleaned up quite fast. As Misfits, though, they're going to use that to their advantage while they're cleaning that up on the lane. Even just beside them, they get themselves 10 skeletons to start things off.
I'm looking at the pick order again. Sylvanas was a double first pick for Misfits, and she's really a counter argument to being able to buy time, give away an opponent Punisher.
They were actually soaking really well with GIZ just then, but they're going to lose Stalk very, very quickly off the back of that. So that's Muradin already down to Hacker likewise. Burrows actually uses his essence there and keeps himself alive quite as well, with also Brightwing soaking the bottom lane. So they actually pushed themselves in an experience advantage whilst delaying the shrine. They were hoping to completely snowball that fight and then grab this, but they're almost level 10.
Yeah, it's a very equal fight between the two here. We've got the skeleton advantage for Misfits. Keep in mind that Diablo will be back instantly. He'll make use of his trade using those 60 souls, and now it's a 5v4. This has got to be it for Misfits.
Yeah, they've got to do something here. Good Burrow to keep himself alive here for BKB, but he might end up dying regardless. Very close, and yes, he will go down just before level 10 hits. Misfits catch up, and they take control of the shrine regardless. Really good play by them.
Yeah, Misfits does it again, and they're going to push as 5 most likely with Sylvanas, trying to get another 4th here. And if it keeps going like this, so far, these early Punishers normally are the most impactful for global teams. It's very okay to give up the 1st or 2nd Punisher to get an XP lead, but the later ones are too strong to ignore. But because of Sylvanas, that strategy isn't working.
Right.
And it would be kind of okay if they could use Stormbolt and Dahaka's Drag Tongue, then with Polymorph and the huge burst behind it to kill a target and then not die. But every time the counterattack from Misfits is too strong. They isolate Dahaka, he burrows once and then dies when he comes up. Got nothing else left. And there's no cleanse when you take Brightwing normally. He did take it, but he gives up support.
And some of the more uncommon choices across this map with Diablo on Lightning Breath, and we have Emerald Wind coming out for Brightwing and Isolation for Dahaka. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. As Emerald Wind alone, now with a little bit of extra healing behind 8% to the Soothing Mists, as well as the trigger of Emerald Wind, is put Brightwing in a really good spot in my opinion. Yeah, Blink Heal's cool, but you can take Emerald Wind now and still get healing benefit.
Yeah, I really like that change. It's such a good design, 8% extra. It's like, it's more okay to take it now. You're not just a selfish damage dealing support, but you're actually contributing with healing as well, while having a very powerful heroic that can really make some plays.
Yeah, and also you want to ideally use phase shift onto someone that is going to be going into the backlines, repositioning for Brightwing, and then dropping the Emerald Wind, which is cool. So they've got someone like Muradin who can Dwarf Toss in and position himself whilst the teleport goes onto Brightwing, or Dahaka especially, who comes in from the middle of nowhere, runs in and just kind of positions himself for a good Emerald Wind. So we'll see how it goes.
Exactly. Otherwise, it can just be used to protect against Sonya on someone like Falstad.
True, true.
Another push with Sylvanas. It's 5 versus 3. We've been seeing a lot of this. A great counter to the global usage. Yeah, they're all here now.
That was the attempt to teleport in onto Stalk and then Emerald Wind, trying to push them towards the fort, but Misfits repositioned as soon as they saw that teleport come in. So that was really, really good use, knowing what was about to come.
This is incredible. Misfits keeps pushing in. Have they overstayed their mark, or can they handle the chaos well here? Bloomby dropping very low.
That was a triple silence on towards GIZ there, and there's going to be the Ancestral Healing on towards Darkmox as well. HotS gets away while killing Greyman as he was trying to blow him up, and likewise Darkmox was keeping almost 3 people just busy down towards the bottom while Greymane died off, so that was good play.
Yeah, but I really feel like Sphyxy jumped in a little bit too far. You've got your Greymane style, and Greymanes are happier when they have a support like Kharazim, or even better, Uther or Rhaegar to back them up. When you have an Emerald, Wind, Brightwing, there's nothing to save you from Oblivion, basically, if you jump in by yourself.
You've got to adapt your style a little bit.
Oh, for sure. You've got to spend way more time in human form, and you only jump in, and only then if Myrddin or Daka have set up the fight for you.
Yeah.
You take the tasty and easy targets, but you may never find yourself 1v3 in the backline. Even if you secure a kill, it's too risky. You generally try not to die first, and then see what you can do as a ranged, well, semi-ranged damage dealer.
Well, GIZ has taken control of the location at the moment, but Misfits has already got themselves 26 monsters, so it's going to be difficult for them to continue this on. That's going to be the gust to just push them away, but it really did nothing. They didn't capitalize off any of that. Lightning Breath gets used here, which pushes them away and guarantees themselves all of these skeletons. It's a win for Misfits.
Yeah, the cool thing about Lightning Breath, even if you don't hit gratuitous amounts of opponent heroes, you secure it. They saw that the gap that they had to close was 12 skeletons, and another Punisher goes to Misfits. The XP strategy for GIZ is working moderately, but when you don't get any Punishers, you keep losing forts. One has to wonder how much is it worth.
Jump across there from the Punisher. No follow-up from Misfits to try and get through. They didn't take down a wall or something like that, which is something that GIZ does a lot when they've got Punishers. They will kill off walls and they will try and go in, but it looks like Storm already well in the thick of things here as trying to push on.
Emerald Wind.
Ancestral Heal will keep him alive, and the pickup on Greymane once again. Sphyxy dies off, and it's the story of this game at the moment. They just have no damage after Greymane's gone.
Yeah, that was a kind of an initiation with Emerald Wind. It came very early. His finger was poised over the heroic button, and once it kind of pushed people away, Greymane got flipped over the shoulder of Diablo, but it wasn't for their honeymoon, it wasn't for a marriage. Nope, it was for a brutal Shrekkening of Greymane. And once again, no heals on demand on that kind of range.
Yeah, sorry, my friend. And even if they had Blink Heal on Brightwing anyway, then that puts Brightwing in a very precarious spot right next to a Greymane in the middle of 5 people, where you wish you would have Emerald Wind.
Exactly.
So it's catch-22, unfortunately.
Misfits taking a lead finally in XP, probably for the second time in this game. They had a small lead to level 10. Now once they get the level 16 talent, they can see if maybe they want to try and catch GIZ at the Impalers, the Merc camp on the bottom left. For now, they're going to meet with GIZ. They see Brightwing on the map. They see Dahaka on the map now. So they know at worst it's 5v3. They'll keep an eye out for those telltale signs that Dahaka or Brightwing are porting in. Both makes a sound. Even if Dahaka burrows into a bush, you still hear a sound. There we go.
Yep, that's true. I think one of the things that's important about GIZ is that a lot of the... Whoa, Cooney-chan.
So close.
Good job you have updraft, my friend. Is that all the teams here know that the Russian teams like GIZ, especially with BKB on them, are always a threat, a potential threat. They could always pull wins out wherever. But obviously here, Misfits have come into this very well versed, very well prepared, and they've picked a solid composition that just doesn't budge. It's 6 kills against 3 with Misfits, almost having all structures alive.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a great game by Misfits so far. The Sylvanas pick has worked out so well. They've empowered every Punisher with it and get a fort with every single Punisher. Yep. I think they've had 3 or 4, and that's how many buildings they've killed.
Wow, look at the auto-attack focus at level 16 as well. Executioner and Give 'em the Axe coming out.
So greedy.
Yeah, they're going to get a lot of damage done with this if they get the right fight that they want.
It's so aggressive. Like, let's see what Brightwing took. Vulnerability, it figures. Not going for the bonus polymorph, not for the bonus healing. And he even has Ice Block, which allows for exactly the situation which you referenced earlier. Jump in way on the front line, Emerald Wind, and you'd be a sitting duck if not for Ice Block. Yeah. But Ice Block will buy enough time. So GIZ is going for broke.
If they push
They're throwing everything on damage.
Yeah, if they push it onto level 20 and they actually get their upgrade to Emerald Wind, then it's amazing. But I don't know if they're even going to get there, because right now Misfits is on this, and if they get this Punisher, there's the potential that they're going to get another keep, and then they'll just be way too far behind to kind of gain any traction.
And then we might see a similar situation as last game, going full on Dark Mode, but the Ancestral Healing hits. Lightning Breath getting massive value here.
Yeah, it was a great unstoppable with the close onto him as well, trying to push the Hacker into the rest of this fight. Blumpy quite low. BKB is going to take a lot of damage. He's surviving.
92! Oh! 92 HP with the disengaged Emerald Wind. Incredible.
But they need to heal up somehow, somewhere, and they need to do it fast because it's 27. And look at this, they're still on the hunt here. Sphinxy gets away. Blumpy is chasing, pushing a Stork back into the fight, but they can't heal up quick enough to get back on the shrine to contest it.
So sick, the position that the Haka was in. Not just was he pushing the Haka into his team, but Blumpy also used his Shadow Charge to escape the clutches of the other four. Like, yeah, don't give an escape point to a Diablo, because he has no escape unless you're between him and the rest of his team.
It's true, and doing it very well at the moment. They've already taken the gate down before the Punisher even gets there. This is perfect here. They could finish with this if they're able to pick up 1 or 2 kills. That might be Stork. He's taking big damage at the moment. The focus on towards Murden, and he gets blown up under the pressure there as Blumpy here gets dragged away by BKB, but not for very long, and he will get saved by the rest of his team. And Kunishan has nothing, no answer. He wants to gust, but what's he gusting into? The keeper's disabled.
At this point, it doesn't really matter where he gusts them. Keeper's disabled. There's 3 people down already. Murden did not have Avatar. Even if Blumpy dies here, he's got the souls to revive himself. And isolation on Darkmark is not going to be enough. Punisher still 40%. This is it. Misfits taking a very comfortable 2-0 victory here. GG.
Misfits in a rush. They've got somewhere to be, and they've got something to prove here in Gamescom in Cologne, as after Valencia, a bit of a disappointing start to their fall campaign. They come in with a great win to start off day number 2.
And Misfits, they popularized Lunara at DreamHack Tours several months ago.
Yep.
Then they tried Tracer at DreamHack Valencia 1.5 months ago, about 1 month. And now it's all about Tychus, passive damage output. No one even touches Tychus. They can't even get there. The front line, the synergy, the teamwork, and the map control by Misfits was too good. They played a level above GIZ, and now it's up to Misfits. 1 more round and they can go to top 4. GIZ, they're going to have no more losses. They're in the loser bracket. They've got to win 2 matches straight.
And one of the cool things about the first pick Tychus is that it just, in the double warrior meta that we have here in Europe, it almost denies your opponents from having a strong front line from the very word go, because you know that if you're going up against a competent Tychus, they're going to start ripping you apart. And it's like, well, do we then take double warrior? And then obviously they did. And well, that wasn't the full be-all and end-all, but
it is really cool. Double warriors the meta. Who is the best giant killer? Who's the best giant killer? Yes, you are, Tychus, because he gets his giant killer at level 1.
Yeah,
everyone else gets it at level 13 or 16.
All right, well, we are done here. Let's head over to Paul, who is with HasselObs from Misfits.
Yes, thank you very much, Kalaris. HasselObs, a very comprehensive victory, 2-0. Was that what you expected coming into the start of day 2?
To be honest, yes. I think we are the favorite of the group. In the end, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're first or second. We just want to go through, but we kind of expected to win.
In terms of coming into this tournament, obviously very disappointing last time out. This is a massive tournament for you guys. You've got to, I mean, you've basically got to win it, or you've got to finish second at Dignitas to have a chance to go to BlizzCon. How much does that weigh on your mind when you're playing a game like that? You know you have to focus on 1 game at a time.
I mean, we always want to win. Doesn't matter what is on stake. But we all know this is the only chance to BlizzCon. So I think everyone is very focused, and we really want to do it.
Is it easier or harder in Group B, do you think, for you? Is it easier because the teams might be slightly reasonable, or does that make it harder because you have to focus more?
I actually think it makes it a bit harder because everyone is more stressed, but I hope we can deal with it, and I think we can.
In terms of playing in front of a home crowd, always nice to come to Germany and play in front of people?
Yes, it's awesome. Look how crowded it is. I think it's nice, yeah.
That's great. All right, we'll let you go, and good luck in the next game.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's head over to the desk, find out what they made of game 1 of the day.
Thank you very much, Red Eye. And yeah, that was a clean first victory for the Misfits. So far, they definitely didn't disappoint their fans. Do you think from what we've just seen, guys, coming out from Misfits, that they are a worthy opponent for the other big names, like Dignitas or Fnatic from Group A?
Between those 3 teams, yeah, I think it's going to be a 3-horse race, I think, by the time we get to the playoffs. But it's going to be who our 4th team is going to be is the biggest question. Obviously, we expected Misfits, and they expected it as well. HasselObs just said, yeah, it pretty much went as we expected, guys. I don't think we're going to see anything different from them in Group B.
Yeah, they were just so solid, you know, like the global allowed GIZ to kind of stay in it experience-wise, but you have to start winning fights at some point in Heroes of the Storm if you want to win games, unless you're playing on Blackout base. So in this case, they just weren't able to ever win one, and then those Sylvanas synergizing perfectly with the Punishers was just too good for them to hold on.
I think it was a simple misdraft. Like, they banned the wrong hero. If they banned Sylvanas, I'm pretty sure that GIZ has a very good chance of winning that game. You could see that even when all of the forts and one keep were down, the experience was still exactly the same. Their biggest problem was simply every time a Punisher was won by the Misfits, they lost way too much. If you don't have a Sylvanas with that, you won't be able to get as much value. And then all of a sudden, GIZ will be ahead in experience, they will be ahead with the talent at some point, and can then snowball that. So it was a simple misdraft on the side of GIZ. They banned the wrong hero, and they paid for it.
Kaldor, what we saw is when Misfits picked up the Punisher, they would all rotate away, and they gave up the top fort for free and allowed them to push in on the gate of the top keep. I mean, at some point, you got to leave somebody back for that, right? I mean, you can't just give it up for free, especially with the Sylvanas you were talking about.
Yeah, like that's one of the biggest problems. I mean, it is and then it is not. They always sacrifice one structure. So they sacrifice the fort, and then later on they sacrifice the keep. But they got always value out of the other heroes that were soaking the lanes, and that's the only reason why they were able to keep up in experience. Even the last fight was where both teams were on level 16 talents, and that's because they always rotated the globals to the outsides. They already just realized immediately when the Punisher was lost, we're going to lose the fort or the keep on this lane. And it's just, Sylvanas was a problem. I talked during the break to Mopsio and also to Gran Baquette a bit about it, and about the draft in there, and they said the same thing. They said, that can work. That comp is something that can actually work on the map if you get that lead, but against Sylvanas, you lose too much once you lose the objective.
Yeah, absolutely, and that Sylvanas really caused a lot of issues here for GIZ. But Jayhao, I think we have a highlight ready, and you're going to talk us through it.
I mean, the whole thing about Sylvanas is her trait, and she locks down structures, and that's the biggest thing. And it allows you to do stuff like what we see My Insanity doing. It allows them, we see in the middle there, we see Darkmok, the isolation, they blow up Murden, and guess what? They're not being hit by the keep right now. Now the shots are coming out, but when it gets locked down, it allows your team to take fights that you normally wouldn't have. Falstad obviously being completely split from his team. They follow up. You know, we talked about Sphyxia and Greymane. I feel like their comp and what they wanted to accomplish, it didn't necessarily fit into what they wanted to do. And My Insanity was able to take advantage to take fights under structures that you normally wouldn't be able to do as any other hero.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, something that we've just seen in that replay as well was the lightning breath coming in from Diablo. And there's always this discussion going on, when do you take Apocalypse, Apocalypse, a murky was in my throat right there, and when do you go for lightning breath? Is there anything like a general rule of thumb, Kaldor, that we can tell the viewers?
It depends on the composition. If you're trying to lock up a target and you have already a couple of stuns that you can combo with the Apocalypse, you can go for it. On this map, if you want to have the presence on the objective, it makes a lot of sense to go for the lightning breath, and that's what they wanted to accomplish. They looked at the composition that GIZ had and said, if we start losing Punishers, we lose the game. We need to make sure that we win the Punishers, we get the value out of it, and then we'll always stay ahead in experience. Because the problem is, once the global comp is ahead of you and is starting to take a talent lead, you're never going to get that back unless you force a fight, and GIZ can always play around that.
Right, and of course, with the first best of 3 now being settled, the tides of power or balance have a little bit changed in that Group B. So let's see, Misfits, they're making it to that winner's match, and they're going to face the winner between Excellent Elethion. I have no idea how to pronounce that. We're just going to call him EE, just to clarify that for the viewers at home as well, and the Jabronis. So the winner is going to face a very scary opponent, Misfits, whereas the loser of the next best of 3 is going to drop down to the lower bracket and play against GIZ. Do you think that there is a team between EE and the Jabronis that has better cards when it comes to facing Misfits, or is it like dead even?
I think if you're looking for an even battle, this is it. I mean, Kaldor, we talked about this a little bit earlier. They have known names on their teams, right, and they've kind of regrouped and reformed in a little bit different fashion. So the potential's there. It's just, is it one of those things to where they get together too late, to where they can get through the groups and maybe not through Misfits? Is that enough for these teams?
I actually think that EE is definitely the team to watch out for here. The Jabronis is a team that newly formed. The players are all known. They played together in the past, but we have very little data on them. When we're talking about EE, on the other hand, first of all, when you look at their scrims, they're very strong. A lot of teams respect them a lot. I've been talking to them quite a bit, and especially after the honeymoon phase that you have with the newly formed team, they said, yeah, it still feels much, much better than being on the 2 teams before, than playing with T89. So this setup, they are hungry. They want to show something here, and I really feel they can make that work. But then again, the Bronies have a lot of experienced players, so this could be a tough battle either way.
And of course, EE is also sporting the most impressive jerseys that I've personally ever seen. So just a little treat for you guys out there. You should definitely be looking forward to that next year, just for this mere fact alone. So,
we are in Cologne after all.
We are in Cologne after all, right? So you might as well go full crazy. GIZ, on the other hand, they have another chance to prove their worth. They're not out of the tournament just yet. Do you think that they will try to think of something different, maybe swap their style? Do you think that they're going to stick to their aggressiveness and their global mobility?
They were playing against a team that's the big favorite to make it out of this group. So this might be why, you know, we saw some unorthodox stuff here out of them, but they are definitely one of those teams that has that crazy factor to them as well. If they want to play a little bit more standard, though, I think if they really think that they are better than the next team they play against, I wouldn't blame them for that. But if they have niche picks that they feel confident with as well, I think it'd be okay too to keep on, you know, playing with some Dehaka. I mean, why not?
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen that even unorthodox heroes can surprise in a positive way. If you think back of 2Bs, for example, with that Butcher or that Medivh, I think it's nothing out of the or nothing out of the impossible here that we see similar things coming in Group B as well.
They didn't play bad. They just played against Misfits. And Misfits, just what, 2 months ago, top 4 in the world at Summer Global Championship. I mean, that's a tall task for anybody to step up on your first game.
Actually, I like that style.
I really feel for Sfixie. He had to play Illidan the first game and then Greymane on the second game. Sure, like those are good heroes, but they are heroes you have to go in with against a team as solid as Misfits. Obviously, it was very hard to pull off, right?
Yeah, but again, I really feel like it was just it was just the wrong ban. They were afraid of the Carrigan, and for good reason. But if they ban Sylvanas here, let's talk for the first shrine or the second shrine at the top lane. They nearly hit level 10 before that happens. If they just hit that 10 seconds earlier, it's a completely different game. If they win one Punisher, and that could have been the one, then all of a sudden Misfits are going to fall behind in experience. And then we're talking a completely different match. So they were close here. I like their style. I really think they should stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're going to find out more in a very short while. So don't go anywhere. We will have more Heroes of the Storm goodness coming into you shortly. In the meantime, you can also use the hashtag HGC if you want to join the discussion and let us know who you think is going to come out on top here between EE and, of course, the Jabronis.
One of the primary